Now that your sample is in the holder and at the right height, make sure the microscope is ready to receive your samples. So there are three things you should look at before you try to insert a sample in the microscope. Here in the microscope software, you should look up here and up here for indicators that will tell you whether the microscope is ready. In here, the air button should be enabled and there should be a green light here. And here, the on button should be enabled, indicating that if you wish to, you could switch the beam on. Also, make sure that all of these microscope controls have been set to the default position. This should have been done by the user before you, but it doesn't harm to check before you insert your samples. The default positions are indicated very clearly here above the controls. Each of these indicates the default position for one of the controls, and the control that it refers to, the symbol here, will have a matching symbol in the control itself, in here. So make sure you look at these positions and then you turn these wheels to match these positions here. For example, the Y control here should be set to 20. So if we look at the control with the matching symbol here, which means it's the Y, then you have to look at this number and see whether it's at 20. In this case, it's not at 20. It's set at 15. So I'm going to turn this wheel until it's at 20. Now it is at 20. You can see here the number 2 and you won't be able to see the 0, but this line here is marking the 20. So now the Y is in the right position. The tilt, so you can see here a T for tilt, which is this control here, should be at 0. So make sure the arrowhead is pointing at the 0. The X control here works in the same way as the Y control, but it's set to 30 as its default position, so you should make sure it's at 30. The Z height should be at 35 by default. This here is the controller wheel for the Z height. At the moment, it's not set at 35, so I'm going to move it to 35, which is its default position, before I insert the sample. Once you know that the stage is at the right position and the microscope is ready to receive samples, go up here on the software window and click on Air. What's happening now is that the microscope is bringing the specimen chamber to atmospheric pressure. So it will indicate at the bottom here whether the chamber is ready or not. While it says that the chamber is processing air, it means it's not quite ready for you to open the chamber door. This is the handle you use to open the chamber door. At the moment, if you pull it gently, the chamber door won't come out. Once the chamber is in air, then you will be able to pull this handle and very easily the door will open. This is what you will see inside the chamber of the SEM. This hole here is where you will place your sample holder. Pick up your sample holder with gloves on, and then you will slide the bottom of the holder into that hole there until you can feel that the bottom of the holder touched the bottom of the chamber. It shouldn't be loose, but it shouldn't be hard to insert it. It should be a nice firm insertion of the holder. The SEM microscope has detectors that are devices that pick up electrons that are generated during imaging, and these electrons are actually used to produce the images. Broadly speaking, there's two types of electrons used in scanning electron microscopy. Secondary electrons are electrons generated by the sample when the beam hits the sample. So these are electrons that basically jump out from that gold layer that covers the sample, and they are picked up by secondary electron detectors. Secondary electrons are probably the electrons that you will be using to generate your images in this microscope. However, this microscope is also designed to pick up a different type of electrons called backscattered electrons. These ones are actually electrons from the beam that when the beam hits the sample, they bounce off. The backscattered electron detector of this microscope is usually pulled out because most people don't use backscattered electrons when they image in this microscope. However, you should check that this electron detector is actually pulled out before you insert your sample, because it can get in the way of you actually imaging if it's been inserted and not retracted. So if you look inside the chamber of the SEM here, what we can see here is actually the final part here of the pole piece of the microscope, and this here is the backscattered electron detector. You will see when I move this little screw here that I'll be moving the detector in or out, yeah? So now I'm moving it towards the pole piece. If you want to use it, that's what you have to do. But if you don't want to use it and you want it retracted, then you move it away from the pole piece. Now the detector is at the right position if you just want to use secondary electrons in your imaging. Now that you have placed your sample inside the chamber, then slide the chamber door back into position, and then up here click on evac. Now what the microscope's doing is that it's making vacuum inside the specimen chamber. Very quickly after you press evac, you should feel that you can no longer slide out the door of the SEM. At the bottom right of the screen here, the microscope will say whether the vacuum is ready. At the moment, the chamber vacuum is not ready, and now it's ready because it's telling you that you can switch to high voltage, so you can switch on the beam of the microscope.